Hey everybody, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Tim.
And this week we're reviewing All Quiet on the Western Front.
All Quiet on the Western Front is a 2022 epic anti-war film directed by Edward Berger, who follows a young German soldier in World War I as he has his eyes open to the horrors of war.
All right, Tim, All Quiet on the Western Front. 3 months ago, we didn't really see this movie coming. Now, it's cleaned up at the Academy Awards, bagged 11 nominations. So I gotta ask you, because a lot of people are buzzing on social media about this movie. What did you feel after you watched All Quiet on the Western Front?
After watching it, I think I just kind of, it was one of those movies where I was watching it and I kind of just sat there because I felt empty, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel any sense of like excitement or, total just like depression or something like kind of a feeling like that. It just felt empty after watching it. And then I kind of, thought about it a little more and I realized, it's a great film. It's a great anti-war film, but just kind of, there's so much loss throughout the movie that you just kind of feel like you've been drained of everything by the end of it.
I come from a long military family. My grandpa served in World War II, Purple Heart. A lot of family members serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so you always hear these tales, like how these men were like champions, and how they did the right thing. And this movie just kind of flips that paradigm on its head by being like, hey, not everyone came back. War's really brutal. And so you sit there when this movie is done and the credits are playing, and just real quick, the score that plays during the credits has no right to be as somber as it is, but we're going to get there. And I was just sitting there in my bed and I went, whoa. Like it hits you with this force that's just kind of, like you said, it really empties you. It's a draining movie to watch.
Yeah, and I really love how it kind of makes you feel like you're in the shoes of those young soldiers, because they have the same reaction. Like, they're going to war, they get this this propaganda and these speeches that make it sound like they're going to be heroes, like they're going to fight a good fight.
Exactly.
They get to the front and it's just complete chaos and death and blood and destruction all around them, and it's a really kind of slap in the face, splash of cold water, and I think that kind of, they try to emulate that with how you would feel watching it, and I think it certainly worked.
Yeah, so here's my question for you. Like you said, this movie it's brutal, it's violent, and you see the full scale of war. You don't get to see that full scale of war in a war movie like this unless you can nail the cinematography, just like Spielberg did with Saving Private Ryan. So what do you think of the direction in this and the cinematography? Do you think they do a good job of visually capturing the brutality that is World War I?
Yeah, absolutely. Loved it. Loved both the direction and the cinematography. I love the opening sequence where it's the kind of the calm before the storm. You've got the scenes of nature, the little foxhole with the foxes, and then you start to hear the bombs and kind of the chaos in the distance. And then it cuts to that super long kind of low sweeping shot over the battlefield where the bodies have just piled up and it's just the complete chaos. And then I also love another shot that really stuck with me was at the end, the final fight sequence. It's one really kind of long shot that follows Paul as he kills all of these French soldiers. And it really kind of puts you in, like, again, it puts you in Paul's shoes, and you're really kind of feeling the chaos of the war and the screams and the explosions all around you. It really, you feel like you're surrounded by it, actually. So I think that was super important to the film's feel.
Yeah, cinematographer James Friend, someone who I haven't seen too many movies he's made, really kind of did this immaculate job of framing each scene. They're super violent, super gory, super sad, and they should be grotesque. Like we shouldn't want to look at them. But he manages to take war and frame it beautifully. Like, I would genuinely think this is some of the best cinematography we've gotten in a long time. And you just kind of watch it, and you can't help but marvel. And I think that's what really reels you in, because it's beautiful, and that's what keeps you in the story. Because this is one, personally, I couldn't watch in one sitting. After I got halfway through it, I needed a break. I needed to drink something, eat something, just not be in the Western Front. And, these soldiers didn't have that luxury. So let me ask you, did this movie kind of affect you like that? Were you able to sit there and watch it all the way? Because, I know people who, like me, couldn't get through all of it. They needed a break.
Yeah, I was able to get through it in one sitting. It just kind of, it was one of those experiences for me where I got really pulled into it. I kind of got lost in the idea of where they were. You're watching in a dark room, and I kind of just felt like I was there. So I felt like I just needed to power through it and like push through it. Well, I didn't feel like that at all, actually. I just felt like, I'm part of this, I'm watching it, and it didn't really feel like when the 2 hours were up, I was surprised. But it was, I can understand totally why you would need kind of a break. It's a heavy film. Yeah. There's a lot to deal with. There's so many moments where it feels like it's the climax, it's the peak of everything, drops back down, and then it goes right back up. So I understand though the need to kind of take a break and distance yourself from it before coming back to it.
Yeah, let's talk about the score in this, because score is something that plays a huge amount in the developing of emotions. And like I said, the score that plays during the credits, just for the strings, so somber. It hits you very deeply. But throughout the rest of the movie, you know, in the beginning, like you said, where it's kind of idyllic, there's those moments of like some lilting notes where you're like, oh, this is gonna be an interesting beginning, and then it just is not. Like it just hits you and keeps going. So what did you think of the score for this one?
Yeah, great score. The thing that stuck out to me the most for the music was that 3-note kind of like horn blast that kept going, like it popped up throughout the film. That really just kept you like a sense of dread for me the entire watch through. Like I never really felt like I could be at ease because that horn would come up and you knew something was coming up or something was going to be going down, like some big battle. So I thought that was a really clever use of sound there. And I think overall it mixed really well with the sounds of war. Like the score knew it pulled out when you just needed to hear the explosions and the actual sound, the diegetic sounds. And then it would, rush right back in afterwards to kind of give the sense of gravity to whatever just happened, like whatever battle just went down.
Yeah, so the abysmal vacuum, that is film Twitter, has been making a lot of comparisons to this movie to 1917.
Okay.
So let me ask you this first. Which one did you prefer? All Quiet on the Western Front, 1917. World War I war movies, which one are you taking?
Yeah, I don't know. They're both great films. It's a tough choice. I think for me, I'm just going to go All Quiet just because of how I felt. 1917 I did see in the theaters, so ideally, I would have I would have felt like I was part of it more, but I think after walking out, I felt like all right, I watched the movie, so I'm walking out of it. But All Quiet, I sat there and watched it, and like I said, I felt empty at the end. So I think it got more of kind of a response and got me thinking more about what I just watched than 1917 did. Both great films, but All Quiet just had something about it that really kind of opened up my eyes to the horrors of war and really put that message out.
So here's what I need to ask you. Is All Quiet on the Western Front in your top 5 war movies?
I would absolutely say it's up there with Saving Private Ryan. It's definitely up there with the top war movies for me because the best war movies show you how awful war is. They don't glorify it at all, and this one did the exact opposite.
Yeah, this movie does not glorify war. One of the things I do wish that we could have gotten, though, like you said, you saw 1917 in theaters. This is a Netflix film. I really wish this would have came to theaters. I had the same experience with this one that I did with Prey, where it dropped straight to Hulu, and you just kind of sit and you're wondering, something so wonderful, why didn't I get to see it on a big screen? Did you kind of have that thought where you're like, oh, this would have been much better if I could have seen this in a theater?
Absolutely, because the theater experience for me is huge when it comes to movies. And like you said, cinematography, score, all of these technical components were fantastic. And they're only amplified through the theater experience. So I really wish we could have had that.
Yeah. Well, Tim, this movie was visceral, it was guttural, but what it needs right now is a score. So Timothy D. Rose, what are you going to give All Quiet on the Western Front from 1 to 10?
Yeah, when I was going into this review, I was thinking 8. Just that was kind of what came to mind. But the more I've been talking about it with you and, the explaining all the things I liked about it, I'm going to go with a solid 9 for it. I think it was a fantastic movie. I think my favorite of 2022, and I can't recommend it to anybody else enough. So.
Yeah, I'm going to change the title of this one and call it All Quiet on the West 10 Front.
Ooh.
Because I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. This movie, like I said, just thinking about it, I'm still kind of like Joker. I still feel the mental effects of it. It's a movie that kind of sits with you a while. And something like that, I think, transcends movies and ends up being an experience. So I loved it, and I think more people need to watch it. If you can handle some of the trauma in it, maybe you should Google before you watch it. But with that, that's all from us. Thank you very much.